Some stories stick with you for a lifetime. This one, this one changed mine. My name's Riz. I won't bother you with my full name because honestly it doesn't matter. What matters is the night I met someone who helped me face the one thing I was running from, myself. It was a winter night in Karachi, one of those nights when the city feels quieter than usual. I've always loved walking along the coastline at night. Something about the waves, how they rise and fall endlessly. It felt like the only place I could breathe. But the truth, I wasn't just there for the view. I was running from something I couldn't name. I had everything, on paper at least. A career, a nice apartment, friends who cared. But inside, I was hollow. I felt like I wasn't enough, like I was always chasing some invisible approval. That's when I saw her. She was sitting alone, staring out at the sea, dressed in white like she belonged to another time. I don't know why, but I stopped. Something about her felt different. I was about to keep walking when she turned to me and said, "You carry a heavy heart." Now let me tell you, I'm not the kind of guy who believes in cosmic signs or fate or whatever, but that stopped me in my tracks. How did she know? I sat down next to her, against my better judgment, and asked, "What do you mean?" She didn't answer right away. She just handed me a mirror, this small, old-looking thing. She told me to look into it. And when I did, I didn't see myself. I saw this little boy, maybe 8 or 9 years old. He was sitting on the steps of a house crying. And then it hit me. That boy was me. I remembered that moment like it was yesterday. My dad had scolded me earlier for something stupid, spilling tea, I think. He always had this way of making me feel small, like I could never do anything right. And my mom, she was too busy with her own struggles to notice mine. That boy in the mirror was the part of me I'd buried so deep, I forgot he existed. But the woman, she saw him. She told me something I'll never forget. "That boy is still inside you, Riz. He's waiting for you to see him, to tell him he's enough." I didn't know what to say. She told me to close my eyes and imagine sitting beside that boy. To talk to him, like I would talk to a child who needed help. And I did. In my mind, I saw myself kneeling next to him, saying, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry I left you here thinking you weren't good enough. I'm sorry I ignored your pain." And do you know what that boy said back? He said, "Why did you leave me?" I lost it, right there on that beach. With this stranger beside me, I cried for the first time in years. And she just sat there, letting me feel it all. She didn't stay long after that. She said what she needed to and left, like she was never there to begin with. I never saw her again. But that night changed everything. It wasn't like all my problems disappeared overnight, but for the first time, I felt something shift. I started journaling, reflecting, reconnecting with that little boy inside me. I realized he wasn't broken. He was just waiting for someone to love him, and that someone had to be me. So here's the thing. We all have parts of ourselves we've buried, parts we think make us weak or unworthy. But the truth, those parts are just waiting for us to notice them, to hold them, to tell them they're enough. That night I learned something powerful. Healing doesn't come from running or pretending. It comes from turning inward and facing what we've been avoiding. And if you're still carrying that heavy heart, maybe it's time you sat down with your inner child. Trust me, it's worth it. This was my story, but what about you? Can you relate to what I went through? Have you ever felt like you were running from yourself? If this resonated with you, let me know in the comments. Share your story, because sometimes Healing starts by simply saying it out loud. Thanks for listening.